I can't get enough of this season of Iruma. Just the fact that you can go from people stealing others' ingredients to talking about love to having a badass brawl to then in the middle of said badass brawl casually revealing that the entire reason this conflict's here to begin with is because these two Toro brothers completely misread who their teacher, their master, their adoptive father, probably from their point of view, is taking under his wing. And the fact that they just chose the two strongest looking people because only their master would pick, someone at the very least who looks powerful. Of course, they would never be as good as them. I think it's pretty hilarious because there's such a misunderstanding. Like, it's not even like our guys understand the misunderstanding and they're like, damn, these guys are fools. They're just like, wait a second, he's a ladies' man? Like, Valem's a ladies' man? Or, I guess he's kind of, but he's a weirdo. Everyone thinks he's weird. Just the fact that they're having two separate conversations and it creates such a mess of a misunderstanding, it leads to a pretty incredible episode. And it's really fun because this was probably the most action-packed we've seen of the Harvest Festival so far, and it's no wonder. I mean, they're basically fighting a giant flamingo that is chomping down trees that honestly makes it look like it's paper mache. But it's really cool because like in the previous section fashion, they take something that's boring on paper and then they amplify it. In this case, I wouldn't say it's boring on paper, but it'd be very easy to just have a giant creature and a bunch of people slamming magic attacks and axes down on it and not have it be that interesting. But in Iruma fashion, they say, hey, this bird, because everything's about collecting ingredients, right? My assumption is like, oh, it's meat, right? But the fact that it's like this dangling apple, but you have to hit the cord or the root basically connecting it 100 times, and more or less every time you hit it, it hits you back probably 10 times harder. Just a nice little detail that makes it go from something that could be a pretty thoughtless battle, which visually it's like, oh shit, it's Godzilla level, it's giant, that's usually what these types of stories go with. But Iruma always has fun with it, and then they spice it up with the personal motivation. And something you'll see me do a lot on this channel is that whenever there's a fight, I look for, is there a narrative reason for the action happening, right? You could easily make it just simply, these two groups randomly bumped into each other, here's the target that has 10,000 points worth of ingredients, and that can work just fine, and you're not going to really criticize it unless you're just looking for something to criticize. But the fact that it's the whole misunderstanding of their master who basically left them and, in very manipulative fashion just left all the work to them, and they basically are not understanding it at all. I mean, we can rewind, I think it was 2 episodes back, maybe 3 episodes back, when we had the whole he sold them off at the bar. It's just, that scene was just so manipulative. And I love the fact that the reason there's this conflict to begin with, it's not even about them getting points. It's not like, hey, if we win, you give us your points, you win, you give, vice versa. Instead, it's simply like, we want our teacher back. And the fact that if they were to win, they would get the wrong teacher, and they would be like, who the hell is this asshole? And then he'd probably say the same thing, like, who the hell are you assholes? And it's just like, Iruma has no chill this season, and I really have had a fun time over these. I think we're at now episode 9, which is insane to think about. But the one blessing that Iruma has continued to deliver is the fact that it just continuously gives us 2 cores. I recently, just prior to this season kicking off, looked at how many manga chapters were available for Iruma, as it stands. And keep in mind, this is an ongoing series. And there's still 2 or 3 seasons worth of content without even considering the future chapters being released. They, in theory, every couple of years could keep pumping out a 2-core series and never catch up until the manga actually ends. And based on what I'm seeing with character development, situational events that are both funny, badass, or what the hell am I looking at, Iruma could last as, a couple hundred episodes, and I'd probably watch all 200. Realistically, I think about 120 to 150 would be the sweet spot for a show like this, but honestly, I've seen nothing that indicates it should be slowing down anytime soon. And based on the characterization we're getting for each pairing of the Misfit class, they're doing a hell of a good job making it just feel explosive. And it still feels like we're still only scratching the surface of what the Harvest Festival has to offer, which, normally you would say man, we've been here for over a month here. But the fact that they're letting all the pairings have their time to shine, and that this is just the first night, gone home, they're napping in the forest or wherever they're at currently. And then we have these fools basically beating up a giant bird for its apple dangle there. And I really like what they're doing, man. It honestly was probably one of the more visually impressive Iruma episodes this season because there was a lot of dynamic shots. One of the first shots in this episode is it lashing out at the tree and biting it as they jump away. And there's just a lot of really fun action. And then when it came to the evil cycle unleashing, it's really cool, right? Because each pairing had a different type of training that was perfect for them, that lets them unleash their true potential, their true power, and mentally grow from a more immature place and where they're at to a more mature place with now they're currently at. And I like the evil cycle and how, I mean, really, you should probably call it sexy cycle, because, I mean, my boy, as evil as sometimes the images looked, more often than not, he kind of felt like a ballerina just kind of doing a dance. But it was nice, right? Because just to see the difference in how, like, their training was, like, constantly going in and out of that cycle so that when push came to shove, they had a trump card that would allow them to do something no one would predict. And I like the concept of like a code word. So basically, they're going to keep running wild until someone says the code word. And even before hearing Irma's the code word, you knew who the code word was going to be. It wasn't going to be Clara, it wasn't going to be a food. It was going to be Irma, because this man just basically wants to be the footstool of Irma if he would let him. And even prior to that, when our other boy was kind of like lashing out, he almost basically ruined it for everyone, because their ability allowed them to, you know, slowly over the course of this episode, brainwash them into getting their emotions higher and higher and higher, to the point that he almost physically attacked another student, which would have broken one of the very few rules that the Harvest Festival has to offer. So if it wasn't for the giant kind of like flame wall erupting, shit would have been over way, way sooner. And that's kind of what I like about an episode like this, is that on paper, if you were to ask me what's the thing I'm looking forward to the most, it's stuff like Irma using his bow against some creature, or them going up against a giant flamingo, right? Like, that's the stuff that obviously will be exciting. But prior episodes, I mean, the love, the kind of imagination land, like, there's just been a lot of variety, and I love how different each character's current predicament is, but also how different their training was. I love the fact that every teacher, every kind of sensei did something different for their students to allow them to really utilize their abilities in such vastly unique and distinct ways. And the fact that the Harvest Festival isn't something that just traps everyone into a linear path of you have to gather ingredients, so you have to know the plant life in order to know which is better to bring back. No. If you don't understand the wildlife, you can just go beat up a giant creature if that's more your forte, and the giant creature is kind of self-explanatory that if it takes 100 damn swings to break that apple free, it's probably going to be worth a pretty penny and probably more than the blueberry you found on your way to basically find that piece, right? So the fact that everyone has their own unique way, like the sabotaging, the stealing, like I still think one of the cleverest things we've seen in the show is when they basically pretended that they were working to deliver their points and they actually delivered it to their partner just to seal it in that way. Like, that was pretty clever if you ask me. And that's what's great about this, right? It's a solid production. It's consistent. You go back to season 1, episode 1, you go all the way up to season 3, episode 9. It's a very consistent visually and narratively styled story. And the fact that everyone's getting their chance to shine and it's not just Irma's story anymore, it really does bring a grin to your face. But I'm excited to see where we're going to go from here. It definitely feels like we're building up to Irma getting his big moment in time to shine. But no, they're taking their time. They're letting everyone get their chance to shine. And for that, I'm very thankful. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. You can also consider supporting Patreon. Got a bunch of live reaction video series going on over there. You can also get video shoutouts and other perks like that, so do consider if you so wish. So, until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.